Anyway, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Supervisors special session, May 11, 2022. We are in session. First item is discussion, approval, disapproval of authorizing the Pinal County Emergency Manager to sign a letter addressed to the USDA National Resources Conservation Service. God, that's pretty good without all my coffee. Mr. Komet, how you doing?
Chairman, before we get started,
I'm sorry, I forgot because you told me. Supervisor Kavanaugh is dialing in today, so he's joining us by phone. Okay, go ahead.
There we go. Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board. Chuck Komet, an emergency manager for the county. This first item is rather lengthy in its description, so hopefully you won't have much for questions on it. But you may recall a couple board meetings ago during consent, one of the items that we had was authorizing me to send a letter to the USDA requesting a waiver of their 60-day requirement for their emergency watershed protection grant program. We did send that waiver, and it was granted, so the next step is in order to potentially help out Ray Mine and ASARCO as being a sponsor of this particular grant program, was for the county to send a letter, which is the first step of the application process. So USDA NRCS gave us a template, and we initially submitted for the board the template as provided. However, after some more discussion, internal discussion, we decided to take away a couple of the bullets that were specifically in that letter, and then change the wording on one in particular that had to do with the financing. There are only just those bullets, but I'll just point them out real quick. We changed the contributing a share of project costs as determined by NRCS by providing funds or eligible services necessary to undertake the activity. And then we completely removed obtaining all necessarily real property rights, water rights, and regulatory permits, and agreeing to provide for any required operation and maintenance of the completed emergency measures. So the final version is, both versions have been posted online for your review, and the final version is what you're hoping to, or what we're hoping that you'll approve today. That's
okay. It. Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? No? Supervisor Kavanaugh, you there?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Okay, so I'd ask for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 1 as presented.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
And so...
as the motion should include approve as presented to the final version of the letter.
Yes.
There we go. We're all on the same page now, literally. All right, now I have a motion.
And I will second that.
We'll second that. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have work session, presentation discussion of Pinal County's current practices for financial audits. Ms. Woods, you're very quick. You were just sitting right out there.
lightning fast.
Lightning fast.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Angie Woods. I'm the Director of Finance and Budget Department for the county. I'm before you this morning to provide a work session presentation and discussion in regards to the Finance Department and Finance and Budget's role in financial accountability and auditing. I'm thankful that this was requested because much of the work that my staff does is kind of behind the scenes, and it's pretty important work, and sometimes goes without we don't get to thank them every day. And so I'm very thankful for the staff that I have and the hard work that they provide. Natasha, can you please put up my presentation? Thank you. Thank you. So what are we required to do as a county as far as financial compliance, and what kind of reports are we required to put together on an annual basis? So there are 3 major reports that my office provides on an annual basis. One, the annual financial audit report. This includes the auditor's opinion on the reported financial information's reliability. Auditors are required to report on internal controls and compliance over our financial reporting. And this is typically included also in our single audit report, but it could be a separate document. The single audit report includes the auditor opinion on compliance with federal program requirements and on the reliability of the federal expenditure schedule. It also includes auditors' reports on internal control and compliance over federal program requirements and any findings auditors report. And I'll get kind of a little bit more into the weeds, how we do that in future slides. Arizona Revised Statutes 41-1279.21 requires that our Arizona Auditor General's Office conducts or contracts for audits, county audits on an annual basis. Additionally, counties that expend more than $750,000 in federal awards during the fiscal year must also have a compliance audit or that single audit that I was talking about. That's under the requirements of Title II of U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200, the Uniform Administration Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for federal awards. Lastly, the expenditure limitation report is required through the Arizona Constitution, Article 4. It's a annual expenditure limitation report that is also examined by our auditors. The purpose of that is to control expenditures of local revenues and limit future increases in spending adjustments for inflation and population growth. Any questions about these three reports that we file on an annual basis?
Board, any questions?
No.
Seeing none, go ahead, please. Thank you.
So, very importantly, our internal control framework. Internal controls establish a system of checks and balances to ensure that no one person has control over all parts of a financial transaction. This frequently is referred to as separation or segregation of duties. The intent is to help protect the government's assets from loss, theft, or misuse. These internal controls also help us compile the reliable, sufficient information that we need to put together these financial statements in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. It helps us comply with laws, regulations, policies, and the terms and contracts of grants that we have. Additionally, the internal controls help to ensure that audit findings are reviewed and updates are provided on a regular basis, not only to you, but to our county manager, so that we can continue to improve the quality and reliability of the information we're reporting to our constituents. So before I get into the kind of how we do this, I wanted to kind of highlight that we have here in Pinal County a shared service model of recording transactions and recording and reporting of the transactions. We have this model because our organization isn't entirely centralized or decentralized in the methods in which we procure and record transactions. A lot of times we're reliant upon departments to, they're recording things, they're providing information to my staff in order to ensure that we're paying things properly and the transactions get recorded appropriately. And so there's responsibilities in those departments to do things like review and reconcile, make corrections to things that have been reported incorrectly. Departments also need to adhere to grant guidelines and procurement policies. So we're reliant on those departments to do their part of that transaction as well. And we're in the finance and budget department, we're overseeing those things and helping to ensure that it's done correctly.
A question here, Supervisors.
So basically what you're saying is any procedures that are done in these other departments, your department actually double checks, in essence, what they're doing.
Absolutely, and
Okay.
we partner with them. And in the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about how we partner with them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So there are hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions that occur on an annual basis, and our role and responsibility is to ensure that we are accurately accounting, monitoring, and processing the report and reporting those transactions. We do so in the several different divisions in the department. So we have obviously our management and budget section. We have our purchasing, our payroll, our accounts payable, our accounting and reporting section, and we also have a grant section. So each of those teams has specific things that they do internally in the department, and they work with our other departments within the county. All of these sections of the department are responsible for maintaining training standards, and so we do, on a monthly basis, we're spending a lot of time to train our department contact people, our financial people, in, say, the sheriff's office, our community development, or the assessor's office, all of the departments across the county, to ensure that we are all operating in the same manner. And it really ensures that we have a basic financial understanding and that we have uniform policies and procedures that are being applied across the entire county. And like I said, in the next few slides, I'll kind of go into each of these sections to provide you information about those internal controls that help us to ensure that we're accurately accounting, monitoring, processing, and reporting those transactions in our financial statements. So I thought it would be fitting to start with Office of Management and Budget, since we're in that cycle of the fiscal year. So as you know, our Management and Budget Department, they help us to establish annual budget limits for departments. In addition to that, they provide monthly financial reports. So they give departments a report of budget versus what is actually spent on a monthly basis. In addition to that, we spend countless hours a year meeting with departments to go through monitoring, forecasting, trend analysis, that helps us as a county to put the financial picture together, to give guidance for where we are financially so that you're aware, our county management is aware, to help us make decisions. Most of the actions of this department are reliant upon Arizona Revised Statutes in Title 42. So if you have some time and want to have probably a snooze read, you can read some of those titles, and we comply with those statutes on a regular basis. So our purchasing section maintains a procurement code. The code was established based upon state statute and Arizona procurement code. One of the main purposes of the code is to establish internal controls or separation of duties for the purchasing of goods and services. The procurement code also ensures fair and equitable economic opportunities are afforded to persons and businesses that desire to compete for county business. So we have a process in place that goes out to ensure that we are contracting or offering the availability for persons and businesses to do service for us or provide goods and service to us. The code also provides a uniform system of control to enhance accountability and increase public confidence in the purchases that we're making here in the county. Our procurement officers meet with departments on a regular basis. Those meetings are strategic alignment meetings, or they call them SAMs. The goal of those meetings is to help departments comply with this code. And in addition, it helps with contract management and contract negotiations. So throughout the year, as goods and services are purchased, we have thresholds, and those procurement officers help departments meet those guidelines in the procurement code. Our accounts payable and payroll teams, their main focus is on the payment of invoices and processing of payroll, and this is through a centralized method. Centralizing these payments helps to ensure we are verifying and paying both employees and our vendors in a consistent method across the entire organization. In addition, this helps separate the actual payment to a vendor or an employee from the department in which authorizes that expenditure, so another internal control. Our accounting team is always hard at work focused on ensuring accounting policies and procedures at the county are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and other accounting standards. They're also responsible for ensuring that there is an appropriate accounting structure, so ensuring that we have a system in place to record those transactions. The accounting team reconciles our funds on a regular basis in order to detect any anomalies, deficiencies, imbalances, and errors. These activities are especially important, ensuring that the transactions are recorded in the appropriate cost centers and funds. It's the role of our grants administrator to ensure compliance with grant requirements and provide grant-related services to departments upon request. Those services include things like grant research, grant writing, project planning, project administration, project management, application review, and reporting. This is done through consistent communication and regular meetings with departments that have grant awards. Our grants accounting team, I wanted to talk about specifically our schedule of expenditures for federal awards, or what is commonly known as our CFA. The CFA presents important information about federal monies that our county is spending during each fiscal year. That report, the total amount of federal program dollars, it reports how much of those federal program dollars we're spending in the year. And it shows how much each federal agency funds to the county. And federal monies that it also shows the federal monies that we receive from a pass-through agency, such as the state. So sometimes we'll receive federal dollars through the state, and that report outlines that as well. Lastly, that CFA also reports any subrecipient grant dollars that would have originated in the federal government. And so if the dollars originate at the federal government and we receive them and we provide a subrecipient grant, that is included in that report as well. So those accountants they're very busy. We receive quite a bit of funding on an annual basis for federal awards. And again, because the amount that we receive from the federal government is above that threshold, we do perform a single audit every year. So our accounting team is also responsible for putting together all of the financial schedules. So once all of the transactions have been recorded, they're doing reviews for accruals of cash and reconciliations. They're doing capital assets review. They're looking at our long-term debt schedule. New this year is GASB 87, which is specific to lease reporting, so we have to be in compliance with that GASB this fiscal year. They're reviewing things like transfers of funds from one fund in the county to another fund in the county. They're reviewing our pension liabilities, and they're making some major fund determinations. Those are just some of the things that help to prepare our financial schedules. In addition to our accounting team that we have here at the county, we have contracted accounting services with Clifton Larson Allen. And today I have invited Sandy Constrom from Clifton Larson Allen to provide what they do for us to supplement what the Finance and Budget Department does. Before I have Sandy come up and speak, would you have any questions for me in regards to what I've covered so far today?
No one has any questions? No. Good. I would just say, money makes the world go round, and you keep the county spinning, so thank you very much for what you do.
So I invite Sandy forward. After Sandy speaks, I'll have Jay Park from Walker and Armstrong. He's also here today. Walker and Armstrong is contracted by our Arizona Auditor General. They're our external auditors, and so he'll go through what their team does from an external perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cronstrom, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Kavanaugh, you had a question?
Yes, for Angela.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, she'll come back up just a second. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to all of your functions, it's important that you're fully staffed. Are you presently fully staffed?
We are not presently fully staffed. We face challenges, but we are working with HR and the county manager's office to ensure that the classifications are appropriate and that the grades of pay are appropriate for our staff. And so I look in the future, in the next short period of time, to be able to hire and retain the staff that we need.
And with your current understaffing, are you having difficulty at all performing the functions of any of the items you mentioned?
The functions, so because our staff is small and because a lot of our staff is new to the county, we are struggling a bit. Our audit for this last fiscal year it was due to be completed by the end of March. Our completion date at this point in time is sometime in the middle of June. So we're running behind schedule, but I wouldn't say that it hinders the reliability of the information that we're going to be reporting in those financial statements.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none. All right, thank you, Ms. Woods. Ms. Cronstrom, how are you?
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for allowing us to come down and talk to you a little bit about what Clifton Larson Allen does for the county. You have my presentation? Okay. You got it. All right. So I thought I'd start out a little bit, just to tell you a little bit about Clifton Larson Allen. We're also known as CLA, so you'll see those three letters throughout this presentation. So CLA exists for us to create opportunities. And when I say that, I'm saying we want to create opportunities for our clients, for our own employees, and in our communities that we live and work in. Our promise to our clients is that we get to know you and to help you. And we do that through kind of a family culture. And we have some strategic advantages, and the top one there, the deep industry specialization, most of our staff works in one industry or possibly two throughout their career. So in my case, I'm a state and local government specialist, so that's my area of expertise, and that's what I do day in and day out, and I've done it for my entire career. So that helps us when we're certainly when we're working with our clients. Clifton Larson Allen has been around for 60-some years. We're a billion-dollar firm. We have about 7,400 employees, 400 of which across the country are dedicated to state and local governments. So we have a lot of resources behind us. Richard Gillespie is my assistant here. He and I do a lot of the work on this particular engagement together. We work out of the Phoenix office, but we do have other resources at our disposal. Like I said, there's 7,400 people. We do over 4,000 state and local government audits. We do the most single audits in the United States, and we prepare the most state ACFRs in the country. As I said, we have a Phoenix office. We also have a local regional presence. Actually, it doesn't really stop there because we're using staff. We're helping the county with their GASB 87 lease implementation, and we're using staff out of our Chicago offices for that. So with the ability to work remotely, we actually can pull any one of the 400 people that kind of are dedicated to that, to the state and local governments. So I wanted to get into kind of the work that we actually do for the county. So Angie was saying she did a great job going through all of the procedures that you guys go through, the grant accounting, the accounts payable, the payroll. When we come in, we rely on those controls that the county has in place throughout the year as they're recording all those transactions. We come in after year end and help the county prepare the audit schedules that Walker and Armstrong use to do the external audit. Those are commonly called PBC documents, prepared by client audit schedules. There's quite a number of them, anywhere from cash, receivables, capital assets, the pensions, the debt, interfund transfers, interfund receivables. There's a lot of documents that are prepared by your finance department in addition to their everyday reconciliation processes. We review all of those PBCs before they're given to Walker and Armstrong. We've jumped in and prepared some of those audit schedules when the county's been shorthanded. We actually have been assisting the county on some of the closing entries as well, looking at some of those year-end reconciliations, kind of looking at it from another perspective. When you're kind of in the weeds on stuff, sometimes you don't see things, and when someone can look at it, kind of take a cold look at it and say, okay, something doesn't look right here, I think we need to make an adjustment or whatever. We also prepare the annual comprehensive financial report for the county. The county produces a trial balance out of your accounting system. It gets uploaded into an external system that actually prepares the report. And we go through and update all the footnotes, all the statistical sections, the budget to actuals. The county does the transmittal letter, and we work with them on the management's discussion and analysis. That's a over 200-page document. That's the big report that I know you're all waiting for to read from cover to cover. While we're doing all this, we're trying to train your finance department so that going forward, you won't need as much of our services as you're requiring right now. And as Angie mentioned, you do have some newer staff in your finance department that are new to the process, new to government accounting, new to the county, those types of things. And it's not for the weak and hard to be in there doing all those PBC documents. There are a lot of them. And then the last thing we do is we provide availability to the county to help them answer any questions when the external auditors are out doing their work as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on what CLA does for you guys.
Are there any questions from the board? Supervisor Kavanaugh, you in there?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions. All right.
I just have one statement.
Supervisor Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it sounds like we're able to at least cover ourselves with using the consultants' outside resources to help us a lot with some of the, even though we may not have the staff here, we're able to at least contract with the expertise to be able to come in and assist us and help us, from what I'm understanding in all of this, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Angie, that was more towards Angie, so thank you. I see you shaking your head, but
Chairman, Supervisor Goodman, yes. So we partner with them, and CLA helps fill the gaps, staffing gaps. They're providing a second set of eyes to us to ensure that what we are reporting is accurate.
thank you.
It's an important step. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Thank you.
That's it. We're easy.
So the third prong of this presentation is our external auditor. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jay Park from Walker and Armstrong. He'll be going through the procedures from an external audit perspective. Thank you, Jay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board. It's good to be here today. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
My name is Jay Park. I'm a partner with the CPA firm of Walker & Armstrong. Our firm specializes in working with counties. There's 15 counties in Arizona. We've worked with approximately, let's say 12 of them. And we started working for Pinal County in 2011 as your auditors. And we audited the county for 7 years. And then we picked up again in fiscal year 2020. And so we are now working on the audit for fiscal year 2021. And our firm, we have an office in Phoenix. We also have an office in Tucson. And one of the great things about doing your audit is you're about halfway between the two of them. So we have auditors coming from both cities. So our firm has been in existence for over 50 years. And like I said, county audits is a lot of what we do. We also work with 3 counties in Arizona doing audit preparation work, similar to what CLA does, just helping counties get ready for the audit. And so we do that as well. What I'm going to cover today, and I'm going to try to avoid having too much duplication, because Ms. Woods and Ms. Cronstrom did a great job already of talking about a lot of the audit process. And so I'm going to cover some of that, but to the extent that it's already been covered, I'm going to move past it fairly quickly. But my main objective today is to talk about what we do as an audit firm and what the board can expect, not only at the beginning of the audit, but also at the end of the audit. There's a lot of information in an audit. As Ms. Woods said, there's 3 major deliverables that will come out of the audit process. The first one is it's referred to as the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. It's over 200 pages, and you are free to read that page by page if you want. The second document is going to be the Single Audit Reporting Package, and that is focused primarily on the federal programs that we audit, as well as what's referred to as the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. And then the third document is the Annual Expenditure Limitation Report. Okay. So there's a lot of information there. And when we get to the end of the audit, one of the things that you're going to get is you're going to get a summary of the audit results. Okay. And that summary is really going to focus on the first 2 documents, which consist of the financial statements and the single audit report. The expenditure limitation report is important as well. But for your county, the good news is you are typically well under that expenditure limitation report. Other counties that we've worked with sometimes push the limit there and get very close to that expenditure limitation report. And when that happens, that's when counties start to really pay more attention to that report. The reason I'm bringing this up is just to put it all in context, which is when you get that third report, that expenditure limitation report, there typically isn't a concern there because you're so far under the limit, okay? But sometimes I have to have discussions with counties, which is, hey, you're getting really close to that limit, so you need to be aware of that, okay? So going to the next slide here, I'm going to walk through the parties involved with the audit, the purpose of the audit, roles and responsibilities, and then just overall process, timing, and deadlines. As you already know, you're the third largest county in Arizona, so you're a big organization. You also are large just in terms of land mass. I believe your total square miles is 5,400 square miles, so you're big. One of the things about auditing a county is that counties are centralized and decentralized. And so what I mean by that is ultimately a lot is going through your finance department, and that's a huge responsibility on them because there's just a huge amount of volume, hundreds of millions of dollars. But, of course, you have operations elsewhere as well. You have your courts, your justice courts, your airport, et cetera. So as part of the audit, one of the things that we do is we have to not only focus on what's going on centrally, but also what's going on at various locations of the county. And so the primary focus is really on the county finance and budgets department. That's where we spend a lot of our time. And their responsibility is, again, just a lot of responsibility there in terms of managing the day-to-day accounting and processing of transactions. They're heavily involved in preparing the account reconciliations and providing that information to us. Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, has been a really critical part of the audit process because they're reviewing a lot of those audit support schedules. And the great thing about that is they're auditors, so they speak our language. And so one of the things that they're doing is really going through those schedules and saying, okay, is this going to work for Walker and Armstrong? And that's good because when we get schedules, if we start having a lot of issues, then that slows down the audit process. And so CLA has been heavily involved also in terms of drafting the financial statements. So that very large, that first document that I mentioned, which is over 200 pages long, they're very involved in preparing that, and then we jump in and review it once it's prepared. Protiviti, we do work with them because they're handling your internal audit function, and that's important to us because we look at their reports and we look at their risk assessments for purposes of our audit. So we have our own job to do, and so if there's any areas that may be of concern to us, it's our job to do work in that area. But we do look at what they do because that helps guide what we call our risk assessment. There's another firm that performs the external audit of the Housing Authority. And we do look at that report, and ultimately the results of their audit flow into the county's audit. Arizona Office of the Auditor General, we work for the Auditor General's office. And so we first started contracting with them in 1985. We were contracted to perform the audit of Yuma County in 85, and we've been working for them ever since. So how that works is they rely on us to do our job and do our audit, and then prior to final issuance of the audit, the reports actually have to go to the Auditor General's office, and they do what's called a quality control review. They do that because they have ultimate responsibility for the audit, even though we're doing a lot of the work. One of the things that's going to be different this year is that there was a change in statute, and so there's actually two components of this. One component is there's now a requirement to present the results of the audit to you. once the audit is done. That's new. That requirement did not exist previously. And the second part of that is that will be done in conjunction not only with us but also with the Auditor General's office, because again they take ultimate responsibility. And then there's our firm. So we've been retained by the Auditor General's office. Our job is to perform the audits, independent audits. Really, 2 audits are performed. The audit of the financial statements, which is that 200-page plus document. Okay, there's the second audit, which is the single audit, and then there's the examination on the expenditure limitation report. Okay, so, let's see here. Purpose of the audit. All right. So to auditors are the most important thing in the world. To everybody else, it's akin to having a root canal performed. But it is important, and we take our job very seriously, and our ultimate responsibility is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. Okay, so what does that mean? What it doesn't mean is it does not mean we look at all transactions in great detail. What we do is something called sampling, and we make sample selections. It's based on risk, and it is statistically driven, okay? But because it's statistically driven, when we're doing our job the way we're supposed to, and we do our sampling and we do our testing, the idea is that we've done sufficient test work to be able to opine on the financial statements, okay? So it's not looking at things 100%, but it is statistically based sampling that we perform in order to provide that opinion. What does that opinion mean? Well, with financial statements, there's rules. Actually, with accounting in general and compliance, of course, there's a lot of rules. So what an opinion is it's where we're saying that the financial statements either are or are not materially correct in accordance with the accounting rules. Material is a very important concept because what we're saying there is that those financial statements, when you receive them, in our opinion, are materially correct in terms of people being able to review them, read them, and make decisions that are the right decisions, okay? So if there was an error that would affect somebody's decision when they're looking at those financial statements, well, that would be materially incorrect, and that would be a problem, okay? So you have your constituents, a lot of constituents that look at financial statements, state of Arizona, of course, but you also issue debts, which is an important part of being a government. Your underwriters look at those financial statements, and they're looking at the financial health of the county, and so it's important that those financial statements are materially correct. So that's the first component. The second component is a single audit. That's focused on federal awards. We don't audit all federal awards. We audit what's called major federal programs. We base our sample of federal programs on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is prepared by the county. We do issue an opinion. So it's a different opinion on the financial statement than what we issue on the financial statement. So because what we're saying for a single audit is that the county materially complied with the requirements pertaining to those federal programs, okay? So to put that into context, we typically focus on the larger federal programs. The CARES Act and the ARPA money has been a big focal point of ours for a lot of our clients, and so that's when we're going to audit for fiscal year 2021. What comes out of that is a report that may contain findings, and that's in the single audit. So when you look at that first document, that big 200-page plus document, you're not going to see any findings in there. If there are any issues in internal controls or compliance, it's going to be in that second document in bullet number 2 there, which is the single audit, okay? And that's actually, when it comes to audits, quite frankly, that's what a lot of people look at because people are oftentimes interested in what were the findings that came out of the audit. So that second report is a really critical document because that's where if we have any findings, that's where they're going to be reported. Included in that, if there's findings, is something called a corrective action plan, and that's where the county is saying, okay, we recognize that there's findings, and then we're going to have corrective action plan here. And then the third document here is expenditure limitation report. It's an examination, and that will also be issued at the end of the audit. Okay, so ultimately the county is responsible for the financial statements. And so with the assistance of CLA, they prepare the financial statements. Also, the county is responsible for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal controls. And so that's a really important process. And our work as it pertains to testing internal controls is going to be documented in that second report called the single audit report. So if there's any internal control weaknesses, that's where you're going to see our findings related to internal controls. Okay. The county, we rely on the county to identify all federal awards because we audit federal awards, the major programs, and so we do a lot of testing in that area, but ultimately the finance department with CLA's assistance prepares that schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So it's a large document. There's a lot of programs there that are listed. And then, of course, establishing and maintaining a process for tracking the status of audit findings. And then at the end of the audit, there's this letter called a management representation letter. Before we can issue an audit and final, what happens is we have to get that letter signed because it's a very critical part of our audit evidence. And our standards require us to get that letter, which is about an 8-page letter that basically just lists out a lot of things that are being represented to us, which is the financial statements are materially correct. They've informed us of everything that's important as it relates to the audit. They're not aware of any fraud, and if they were, then we've been informed of that, so that's all contained in the letter. All right, so what's our responsibility? Well, I mentioned this earlier. We perform an audit with the ultimate goal to either express an opinion on the financial statements and on compliance. And if we can't do that, then we have what's called a modified report, okay? In very rare circumstances, and I've only had this happen with one county in my entire career, we issued a disclaimer, which basically said we can't issue a clean report. In fact, we can't issue any type of opinion because the records were just not auditable, okay? Been working with this county for a long time. Never seen that happen. Do not expect that at all. And if that was to ever come up, of course, we would have that conversation well on the front end. So, and I touched on this under 2B there. Our objective is to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance. So there is this concept of materiality. So our work is based on samples. And so we don't look at 100% of all transactions. Internal controls is really important. So we spend a lot of time there. Most of what you see in terms of just the deliverable from an audit, just in terms of overall volumes, actually the financial statements. But internal controls are really important because, especially for counties, because counties can be very decentralized. And so there's really a great importance to have strong segregation of duties and checks and balances. And so that's an area that we spend a lot of time on. Another area that we spend a lot of time on is related to fraud, okay? And so and I do want to make a point here, which is auditors from a percentage standpoint they typically do not detect fraud for organizations, and that's oftentimes a common misconception. The average percentage is anywhere between 3 to 4% of fraud is detected by auditors. The reason I bring that up is your internal hotline is really important because that's how most fraud is detected. The other way fraud is detected is not only through the hotline, but we ask a lot of questions because we're looking for guidance if anybody is aware of fraud. So while we might not detect it, we have found that by asking a lot of people a lot of questions about fraud, maybe something that will come up that we need to know about. So as part of that, we go through inquiries with board members. We go through inquiries with management, certainly the finance department. But we also will focus on outside departments, and we don't ask the same questions every year of the same people. What we do is we try to get coverage. And we do that at all levels within the organization. So, and certainly if anything comes out of that, we go to management first, and we have that discussion. And then certainly, if it's something that needs to be pursued, you'd be made aware of it. Okay, audit process, timing, and deadlines. I break this up into 4 different components. The first one is the planning part of the audit. So again, you're a big organization, so there's a lot of planning on the front end that we do. Understanding and testing of internal controls. The majority of that work was done several months ago. We focus on cash receipts. We focus on vendor disbursements and payroll. So those are the 3 major cycles that we look at for purposes of internal controls. Then we move into the single audit, and we are working on wrapping that up this week and next week. And then also field work, which is item D there. And that's really when we get focused on the number side of things. So we're really diving into those schedules that the finance department and CLA have provided and doing our audit test work of those schedules. When we get through what we call field work, then we move into the financial statements, which is which is where we really focus on making sure that everything that we audited rolled up into those financial statements correctly, and making sure that they conform to the rules. And then once that's done, everything goes to the Auditor General's office. They do their final review, so there's a lot of eyes looking at your financial statements before they go out the door. And then that's it. So then what you get as a board is you're going to get an email, and you've probably seen this before, coming from the Auditor General's office, which is saying your audit is done, and here's where you can access it. So your audits are all kept on the Auditor General's website, and they have your audits going back many years. So far we've received the preliminary schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and so we've done a lot of our single audit test work to date. And then we started getting information back on March 31st, and then how it's working right now is we continue to get more information in. And as we get that information in, then we start auditing it. So we have a large team that works on this audit. Anywhere between 5 to 6 people are working on the audit. In terms of overall deadlines, let me go back to completion. So just in terms of completion, it's typically 8 to 10 weeks after we get what's called the trial balance, which is the document that contains all the numbers that we audit, and then all the support schedules. So that's just overall timing. Deadline, there was a deadline to the AG's office on March 31st. One of the things that's happened here is because of the pandemic, there's been a lot of extensions. So typically, for purposes of the federal government, the audit would be due to the Federal Clearinghouse as of it's 9 months after year end, so it would have been March 31st. We are operating under a deadline from the federal agencies, though, which gives us through September 2022. Okay, so that's been a one-time extension that we've been operating under. Okay, well, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. That was great. Any questions? No questions. And I do see that we've seen the annual expenditure limitation report, and it's exciting reading, like you say. It's great stuff.
Great stuff.
So, thank you very much.
All right.
Don't forget.
Thank you, Chairman.
Supervisor, I'm not forgetting him.
Oh, okay.
But Supervisor Kavanaugh, do you have any questions?
None, thank you.
See, you speak up. Okay. Okay, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. And unless you have any additional questions that came up through both CLA's presentation or Walker and Armstrong's presentation, that's all I have for you today.
Oh, thank you. It's just like in college when my professor said, Mr. McClure, what would you do if you had an accounting question about blah, blah, blah? And I said, I would call my accountant, and that's exactly what I would do here. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right. I'm going to ask for a motion to convene to executive session.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Costello. Do I need to talk to you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Kevin Costello, Deputy County Attorney. A brief explanation. I initially noted this for executive session based on two different provisions of the statute, ARS 431.03, A1 and A3. A1 relates to the appointment of people for positions in a public body, which is one of the things that you're going to be considering. And A3 is for legal advice. To discuss under A1, to discuss consideration of an appointment, the person who is the subject of that discussion has an opportunity to request that those discussions happen in open session. One of our candidates has made such a request. So the discussions of the appointment need to happen in open session. You can still go into executive session for the purpose of legal advice if you have questions about the board's ability to make this appointment and what that authority is.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Does the board wish to go to executive session to discuss these items?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, then may I get a motion to convene to executive session?
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Aye, there we go. Okay, those opposed? Hearing none, we are in executive session.
Second.
I have an order and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Supervisor Kavanaugh, boy, is he volume up? I believe you said, there we go. Okay, thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, we're out of executive session. All right, number 4 is discussion, approval, disapproval for the appointment of 2 board members for the Mammoth Fire District. Currently, the Mammoth Fire District does not have a quorum pursuant to ARS 48803B. The County Board of Supervisors has the authority to appoint a replacement since the Fire District Board cannot due to lack of a quorum. I assume cannot operate or cannot do anything. All right. Board, do you have any questions? Hearing none. May I have a recommendation for the first board member for the Mammoth Fire District appointment?
Mr. Chairman, I would move Veronica Casillas to the Mammoth Fire Board.
All right. Let me see. Are there any further recommended appointments for the first board member? Hearing none. I would close the recommendation for the first board member of the Mammoth Fire District. And we'll take a vote on the recommended appointments, as we have one.
Need a second.
Is there?
Yep.
We had it.
If we're voting on one, we need a second, correct?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bring the one.
So I'll second that motion.
You'll second. All right. I have a motion. I have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Let's see. I'm sorry, I can't keep. Ms. Casillas, you are member number 1. Let's see. We have for member number 2. Do I have a recommendation for member number 2?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we appoint Fred Rick Sanchez as the second member of the Mammoth Fire Board.
Second. Oh, wait, no second until we vote, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second appointment? A second name for an appointment? Hearing none. I take a vote on the recommended appointment. We have.
Oh, you need the second.
Yeah, now I'll take that second.
Now I'll take the second. Okay, we have a second.
I'll second that.
From,
Or somebody else already did.
from Mr. Sanchez. Okay. All right. So those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, Mr. Sanchez, you are member number 2. And at that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.